You know hummus, right? That creamy, delicious dip we all love. But what if I told you that this simple, humble dish is actually at the center of a huge international food fight? We're talking a full-on battle for national pride, with lawsuits, world records, and a secret history that goes back for centuries. This is the story of the Hummus Wars. And when I say this gets big, I mean it gets really big. Take a look at this number. 10,452 kilograms. That is over 23,000 pounds. It's the weight of the world's largest ever plate of hummus. Now, you have to be asking, why would anyone make that much hummus? Well, that's where our story really starts to get interesting. And that really is the million-dollar question here, isn't it? How did a simple dip, this beloved staple, turn into a full-blown culinary and cultural battlefield? The answer, it turns out, is all about how food, our identity, and national pride can get so tangled up that you can't separate them anymore. So let's start with the modern conflict, which you could call a diplomatic incident. See, this isn't just about who makes the best party snack. This is a story about cultural appropriation, about legacy, and about who gets to claim one of the world's most popular foods as their very own. Okay, so picture this. It's 2008. The head of the Association of Lebanese Industrialists is seeing hummus being sold all over the West as an Israeli dish, and he gets furious. So Lebanon officially accuses Israel of stealing and profiting from its culinary heritage. This was the shot that really kicked off the modern Hummus Wars. And Lebanon didn't just complain. Oh no, they took action. They went on the attack. First, they tried to sue Israel for, believe it or not, food copyright infringement. Then they petitioned the European Union for protected status, trying to make hummus uniquely Lebanese, just like how champagne can only come from Champagne, France. But in the end, both of these efforts, they failed. So, the legal strategy didn't work out. What do you do next? Well, you go to the history books. To figure out who really owns hummus, we've got to travel way, way back in time to find its ancient roots, and maybe even a secret recipe. And what's wild is just how far back this story goes. I mean, the main ingredient, the chickpea itself, was first grown around 7000 BCE. That's ancient. But the dish, the first known written recipe that actually resembles our modern hummus, doesn't pop up until 1250 CE in Syria. Then we see some variations in Egypt in the 14th century, and by 1885, a simpler version shows up in a Lebanese cookbook. So yeah, this is no fad. And that very first recipe, it had a name. Hummus Kasa. It was written down in a 13th century Syrian cookbook with this amazing title, which translates to winning the beloved's heart with delectable dishes and perfumes. How great is that? This wasn't just some simple folk dish. This was documented, high-end culinary art. But here's where it gets really fascinating. You have to hear what was in this original hummus. Forget that plastic tub you get at the store. This stuff was fancy. The chickpeas were pounded by hand, not blended, so it had this coarse, rustic texture. And the garnish? It was topped with chopped pistachios, dusted with sweet cinnamon, and even perfumed with crushed dried rosebuds. Can you even imagine? I mean, when you put them side by side like this, it's just night and day. On one side, you've got the medieval version, coarse, complex, with pistachios and rosebuds, and on the other, the hummus we all know, smooth, simple, and maybe a little paprika on top. It just goes to show you how much a dish can change in 700 years. Which, of course, brings us right back to the central question, the one that started this whole modern conflict. After all of that, who actually invented hummus anyway? Well, here's the answer you were probably expecting. Most food historians will tell you there's just not enough evidence to point a finger at one person or place. The dish most likely comes from the wider Levantine region, the area around the Eastern Mediterranean. But a little thing like a lack of evidence has definitely not stopped the debate from being absolutely fierce. So let's break down the main claims. Syria's got that 1250 cookbook, which is a strong piece of evidence, but folk dishes are often made for centuries before anyone writes them down. Egypt points to recipes from the 13th century, but critics say they were missing key stuff like tahini. Some in Israel claim it's mentioned in the Bible as hometz, but, that word actually means vinegar. And Lebanon's claim is based on Beirut's rep as a food capital. A solid theory, but there's no smoking gun. So, if history is too murky to settle the fight, what's left? Well, the battle for ownership moved out of the archives and onto a much bigger stage. It became something much more public, much more visual. The Great Hummus Record War. It all started in 2009. Lebanon basically decided, okay, we're going to settle this once and for all. They made a plate of hummus so ridiculously huge it would set a Guinness World Record. And they did it, 2,000 kilograms. But that record didn't last. Nope. Just a few months later, in early 2010, an Arab-Israeli village fired right back, and they doubled the record to 4,000 kilograms. And get this, they served it in a giant satellite dish. A satellite dish. And that brings us right back to that insane number we saw at the start. Later that same year, Lebanon came back with what they hoped would be the final word, a truly mind-boggling 10,452 kilograms of hummus. And that number wasn't random. It was chosen specifically to match the country's land area in square kilometers. To this day, that record has not been broken. But here's the interesting twist. While this epic battle was raging in the Middle East, something else was happening. Hummus was quietly conquering the rest of the world. It was shifting from a regional battleground to a global staple. Just look at its growth in the United States alone. Back in 2006, hummus was in about 12% of American homes. Fast forward 10 years, and that number more than doubled to 25%. It became a fixture in every grocery store, landing at the perfect time when everyone was getting interested in healthier, plant-based foods. And as it spread, it changed. It adapted. Today, you can find pretty much any kind of hummus you can imagine. Beet hummus, avocado hummus, and yes, even chocolate hummus. It's a real thing. And, its ability to change is probably a huge key to its global success, even if some of those flavors make the purists cringe a little. So, where does all this leave us? Well, I think this quote from Oren Rosenfeld, who actually directed a documentary about this whole thing, just says it perfectly. Hummus is a Middle Eastern food claimed by all and owned by none. It's not a trophy for one country to own, it's a shared cultural legacy. And that's really what this is all about. Food is so deeply personal, so tied to who we are and where we come from, that it can easily become a symbol for something much, much bigger. It really makes you wonder, is food a bridge that can bring us all together? Or is it destined to become our next battleground? Something to think about the next time you're dipping a pita chip.